Is this your idea of fun meth? Top Gun turned naval aviation into a global obsession. When it roared into theaters in 1986, Tony Scott's film didn't just tell the story of Lieutenant Pete Maverick Mitchell, played by Tom Cruise. It reimagined what an action movie could feel like. Cruise's Maverick was a fearless, rule-bending pilot with more swagger than sense. Anthony Edwards made Goose the kind of wingman audiences still mourn. Kelly McGillis brought intelligence and warmth to Charlie, the civilian instructor who saw past the bravado. Val Kilmer as Iceman turned a single jaw clench into a whole philosophy of precision. And Tom Skerritt's Viper anchored the story with the weight of experience. Produced by Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, Top Gun earned over $350 million worldwide and embedded itself in pop culture. The jets, the jackets, the volleyball, the sunglasses, the soundtrack. It felt like a recruitment film, a love story, and a music video all at once. Today, we're climbing back into the cockpit for 15 shocking facts about Top Gun. The magazine article that started it all, the jets that cost a fortune to borrow, the illusions behind those cockpit shots, and the real-life tragedy that shadowed the production. Before we throttle up, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our deep dives into the movies that rewired the 8S. Now, let's talk about the stories that took Top Gun from a magazine page to a cultural landmark. Chapter 2, 1. The movie began with a magazine article, Ehud Yoni. Number 1, a magazine article called Top Guns Lit the Fuse. The road to Top Gun didn't begin with a script. It began with a magazine. In May 1983, writer Ehud Yona published an article in California Magazine titled Top Guns. It profiled real Navy pilots training at Naval Air Station Miramar, Fightertown, USA, just outside San Diego. Yet followed two aviators through the intense 5-week Top Gun program, capturing the competition, the camaraderie, and the sheer intensity of flying F-14 Tomcats at the edge of what the machines and their pilots could do. Lieutenant Commander Charles Heatley's photographs accompanied the story, showing jets slashing through the sky above the desert and the ocean. It read like a movie with no camera attached yet. Producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer saw the article and immediately recognized its potential. Within 2 months, they had secured the film rights. Hollywood, however, was slow to catch on. Screenwriters passed. Directors like David Cronenberg and John Carpenter said no. A movie about naval aviators built on procedure and call signs didn't sound like a guaranteed hit. Eventually, Simpson and Bruckheimer turned to Jim Cash, and Jack Epps Jr. Epps immersed himself in the real world behind the pros. He attended declassified classes at Miramar, listened to instructors and students, and strapped into an F-14 himself to feel what a high G turn actually did to a body. And those were what were put into the article Top Gun in California Magazine. And if you look at the end of the movie, it said inspired by an article in California Magazine. The first draft built from that research wasn't what the producers wanted. They rejected it. And many of the elements audiences now associate with Top Gun came later. But without YA's article and Heatley's images, there would have been no foundation at all. Decades later, the article resurfaced in another form. In 2022, Yona's widow and son sued Paramount over Top Gun Maverick, arguing that the rights to the original piece had reverted to them and the sequel infringed on that source. Paramount countered that the new film drew from the original movie, not the article. The court agreed. The movie world that grew from Yona's work had by then become its own universe. Chapter 3, 2. Renting real F-14s cost a fortune, Don Simpson. Number 2. Borrowing real F-14 cost Paramount a small fortune. Top Gun's aerial realism came with a price tag. In the mid-1980s, the U.S. Navy's F-14 Tomcats represented the cutting edge of carrier aviation. Each one cost the government roughly $38 million. To put them on film, Paramount had to rent time in the sky. The fee was about $7,600 per flight hour per jet. Over the course of production, the studio spent around $1.8 million with this Pentagon. That money covered access to aircraft, fuel, pilots, Miramar's training facilities, and multiple aircraft carriers. On a $15 million budget, more than 10% went directly to the Navy. From a financial perspective, it was a remarkable bargain. For less than the cost of one Tomcat, the filmmakers gained the ability to show audiences an entire fleet in motion. Launches, traps, catapults, and afterburners framed against real oceans and real skies. Okay, Buddy, what's on your mind? Oh, there's two of them. Ain't no one's been this close before. In an era when computer-generated imagery was still in its infancy, there was no way to fake that convincingly. The collaboration produced smaller, almost unbelievable moments as well. While filming aboard the USS Enterprise, Tony Scott fell in love with the light at sunset, a golden angle that made the entire flight deck glow. When the ship turned, the sun disappeared. Scott asked the captain if the Cabal they could adjust course to recapture the magic. The answer came back with a number. $25,000. That was the estimated cost in fuel and planning to change direction. Scott wrote the check. For a few minutes of perfect light, jets taxiing through amber haze, crew silhouetted against the horizon, he reached into his own pocket. It was a director's instinct overriding every other consideration. If the world offers you that shot, you take it. Number 3. The most intense cockpit moments were shot in a hangar. Not at 30,000 feet. Top Gun sells the sensation of flight with every close-up. Sweat on foreheads, strain in neck muscles, eyes tracking invisible threats through the bot canopy. Many viewers assumed those shots came from cameras crammed into real F-14 cockpits mid-maneuver. Most didn't. Tony Scott did send his actors up in actual jets. The Navy strapped them into back seats and let them feel true G-forces. The problem was sound. Jet engines and wind noise drowned out everything. Even with specialized microphones, the dialogue was unusable. The solution was to separate feeling from filming. For close-ups, the crew built a meticulously detailed F-14 cockpit replica on a gimbal in a hangar behind Burbank Airport. Rear projection screens showed footage of sky and horizon. The platform tilted and shook to simulate banking and climbing. Crew members just off camera sprayed the actors with water to imitate sweat, while lights flashed to suggest changing conditions. In those shots, Tom Cruise, Anthony Edwards, Val Kilmer, and the rest weren't actually pulling Gs. They were performing, guided by the memory of what those forces felt like on the real flights. The real jets still played their part. The exterior aerials, dives, climbs, formation flights were filmed from chase planes like an A-7 Intruder and a camera-equipped Learjet. Navy pilots flew the Tomcats. One of them, Scott Allman, later became a NASA astronaut. He flew the Buzzing the Tower run 9 times, skimming past the control building at Miramar, and he provided the hand in the frame when Maverick flips off the opposing pilot in the inverted shot. The finished film blends those elements seamlessly. Simulated interiors, real exteriors, and one future astronaut's precision flying combined to make viewers believe they were strapped into the cockpit with Maverick. Chapter 5.4. The volleyball scene almost got cut. Tony Scott. Number 4. A volleyball game the studio wanted to cut became a defining image. The beach volleyball sequence has become one of Top Gun's most iconic scenes. Bare chests, dog tags, sand, and Kenny Loggins playing with the boys, turning a friendly game into a mythic contest. From a narrative perspective, it changes nothing. No mission is planned there. No orders are given. The scene exists purely to show rivalry and camaraderie, out of uniform and out of the cockpit. Tony Scott shot it like a commercial. Coming from the world of high-end advertising, he focused on bodies in motion, sweat catching the light, and the rhythm of music and movement. The crew timed the entire sequence for golden hour. Brief windows at sunrise and sunset when the light turns warm and forgiving. Between takes, assistants sprayed the actors with water and reapplied oil to keep everything gleaming. When Paramount executives saw the footage, they were skeptical. It looked like an expensive detour, minutes of screen time without plot. At a point in the movie when they wanted more jets and more training, Scott refused to let it go. He understood that audiences needed to see the pilots as young men with something to prove, not just helmets and call signs. The volleyball game framed the rivalry between Maverick and Iceman in purely physical terms. No ranks, no cockpits, just competition. Decades of parodies later, from comedies to other action films, the scene's staying power has vindicated that instinct. What seemed to some like filler became one of the most enduring visual signatures of the entire film. Chapter 6.5. Ray-Ban aviators became a global trend again. Tom Cruise. Number 5. Ray-Ban's aviators were fading until Maverick brought them back. When Top Gun arrived, Ray-Ban's aviator sunglasses were no longer the height of fashion. Once standard equipment for military pilots, they had slid into dad accessory territory. Annual sales hovered around 18,000 pairs, a modest figure for a once dominant brand. Then Tom Cruise put them on. Maverick's gold-rimmed aviators weren't just part of a costume. "So, you're the one?" "Yes, ma'am." "All right, gentlemen. We have a hop to take. Our deck on this hop will be 10,000 feet, there'll be no engagement below that." They blended authenticity. The frames were originally designed for real pilots with the reckless glamour of a man who raced his motorcycle alongside jet takeoffs. The glasses made him look untouchable and paradoxically achievable. Anyone could buy a pair. Not everyone could fly an F-14. Within 7 months of the film's release, aviator sales rose by roughly 40%. Malls and optical shops filled with people trying on the same mirrored lenses they'd seen on screen, hoping a bit of that attitude might come with the purchase. The impact rippled beyond 1986. Throughout the late 80s, Ray-Ban sold millions of pairs, their fortunes restored in no small part by a single character's look. And when Top Gun Maverick reignited the story in 2022, sales spikes came again as a new generation embraced the same frames. A practical piece of military gear reframed by cinema became a permanent symbol of cool. Number 6. Val Kilmer tried to avoid the movie, then helped redefine it. Val Kilmer did not want to be in Top Gun. He later admitted he wasn't drawn to the script and disliked what he saw as warmongering in films. But he was under contract to Paramount for a 3-picture deal. When the studio said they needed him to audition, he couldn't refuse. Even if he could resist enthusiastically participating, he responded in his own way. For the audition, he wore oversized green Australian shorts and read his lines with minimal energy, hoping to make it clear he didn't fit. It didn't work. Paramount cast him as Iceman. On set, Kilmer channeled his ambivalence into the character. "Congratulations on Top Gun." "Thank you. Sorry to hear about Cougar. He and I were like brothers in flight school. He was a good man. Still is a good man." "Yeah, that's what I meant." He cultivated a bit of distance from Tom Cruise, keeping the rivalry sharp both on and off camera. Cast members gravitated into informal teams. Maverick and Goose on one side, Iceman and his wingman on the other. The chill in their scenes owes something to actual difference in temperament and approach. With little on the page about Iceman beyond ace pilot and rival, Kilmer built his own backstory. A distant father, relentless self-discipline, and an almost pathological need to be perfect. He added small, memorable touches, the brief hard bite of his teeth toward Maverick, the unblinking stare during confrontations that turned Iceman into more than a standard antagonist. By the time filming wrapped, his view of the project had changed. Tony Scott's visual ambition and the camaraderie on set won him over. Years later, when Top Gun Maverick entered a development, Kilmer actively campaigned to return rather than waiting for an invitation. The actor who once tried to avoid the franchise ended up helping give it some of its most enduring images. Chapter 8, 7. The bar scenes humanized the pilots. Anthony Edwards. Number 7. The bar scenes turned pilots into people. The most famous moments in Top Gun don't all involve afterburners. 2 bar sequences, both grounded and low-tech, gave the movie some of its most enduring images and some of its deepest emotional impact. In the first, Maverick spots Charlie across a crowded officers' club and decides the best way to introduce himself is to sing "You've Lost That Love and Feeling" at full volume. "You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips. There's no tenderness like before in your fingertips." One by one, his fellow aviators join in, turning an awkward solo into a group performance. It is reckless, corny, and fearless. All the things that define Maverick. Later, in Kansas City Barbecue, a real San Diego restaurant, Goose takes the spotlight at the piano. Anthony Edwards pounds out great balls of fire while Meg Ryan's Carol laughs beside him, delivering some of the film's most quoted lines. Maverick leans in, the bar sings along, and for a brief moment, the weight of training and danger disappears. These scenes do what dogfights can't. They humanize the pilots. You see friendships, marriages, and habits built over years, not just call signs and stats on a blackboard. When tragedy comes, those moments of joy linger in the audience's mind. Today, both locations remain pilgrimage sites for fans. The music, the laughter, and the shared lines have outlasted the original film reels. Quick pause. Who was your favorite Top Gun character? And did that change after you saw Top Gun Maverick? Drop your pick in the comments. While you're there, hit like and subscribe. We revisit the movies that shaped whole generations every week, and it helps this channel keep flying higher than a MiG-28 ever could. Now, back to the facts that turned a simple pilot story into a full-blown legend. Chapter 9, 8. The MiG-28 was an American jet in disguise. Tony Scott. Number 8. The enemy MiG-28 was an American jet in disguise. Top Gun's final act pits F-14 Tomcats against sleek black MiG-28s, ominous adversaries with red stars on their tails. Aviation enthusiasts noticed something immediately. No such aircraft exists. The MiG-28 was a fiction built from real hardware. The production used Northrop F-5 Tiger IIs, American-made jets that the Navy already flew as adversary aircraft at Top Gun. For training, instructors painted them in foreign style schemes and used them to simulate enemy tactics. The film simply extended that practice, painting them black, adding red insignia, and giving them a name that signaled their fictional status. Real Soviet MiGs nearly always carried odd numbers. MiG-15, MiG-21, MiG-23, MiG-29. MiG-28 was, for anyone paying attention, a wink that this was a made-up airplane. The film also never names the opposing country. No flag appears, no government is identified. The enemy remains the other side, defined only by the red star in the context of the Cold War. That vagueness kept the movie from becoming tied to a specific geopolitical moment. It turned the dogfights into contests of skill rather than explicit allegories. Chapter 10, 9. The inverted jet scene was aerodynamic fantasy. Tom Cruise. Number 9. The inverted bird shot was physically impossible, and that made it legendary. One image from Top Gun became shorthand for the entire film. Maverick's F-14 inverted above a MiG-28 canopies, almost touching as he and Goose snap a Polaroid and offer a rude hand gesture. For real naval aviators, the scene is pure fantasy. The F-14's twin vertical stabilizers rising high above the fuselage would collide with any aircraft that closed beneath it. The aerodynamic turbulence between two jets flying in such tight opposing formation would be wildly dangerous. In reality, formation flights maintain staggered positions to avoid exactly that kind of airflow. Well, we thank you. Started up on his 6 when he pulled through the clouds, and then I moved in above him. Well, if you were directly above him, how could you see him? Because I was inverted. Fuel systems add another limit. Fighters can fly inverted for short bursts, but extended upside-down maneuvering starves engines of fuel. Staying that way long enough to hold position over another aircraft, converse, and take a photograph would flirt with flameouts.